Hello, everyone, and welcome to your horoscope for the week of May the 20th till 26th, 2024. We are ahead of quite an intense, powerful week where we are definitely going to be experiencing a shift, a change, a certain kind of transformation. It may just dawn on us that we are simply not in the same mood, same vibes, same philosophies, same worldviews, and same feelings that we were a few weeks and even months before. And this is because we are ahead of some very important energy shifts. Now, just like all of the very past recent, uh, important celestial conversations, this energy might bring something new, something different immediately in our lives, or it might just come with the feeling, but that feeling is a kind of certainty where in the following days, weeks, or even months, that which we feel the change, the transformation, the new, the next is definitely going to show up in our lives one way or another. Of course, this can be an external energy, but this can also be an inner energy. Because let me give you an example. Many times, what we really, really need in our lives to move forward, to progress, to make another step is actually something interior. For example, like the spark of passion to light up once again. If someone is dealing with longer term burnout, that is the miracle energy that they need. It's not external, it's exactly that. Or for artists, or for very creative people. They do need a very good and almost like permanent connection with their, so to speak, muses, whatever that is for them personally, a person, a book, a philosophy, meditation, or whatever. They do need, and that's something invisible. That's something inner, basically. Or let me give you another example, healing. Certain type of healing, especially that which has a lot of Taurian vibe to it, like self-worth or one's relationship with money, with finances, with resources, with beauty, with all of these Venusian expressions. Well, a powerful healing, any kind of catalyst in these uh, elements, let's say, it's internal and it's gonna produce some external effect. So for some people, this is actually an internal shift, change, transformation, upgrade, or next step, but it's very, very significant. So it really doesn't matter in which way it plays out, externally, internally, emotionally, mentally, everyone what they need. You know what I mean? And the other consideration is that these energies are still working on the recent Jupiter Uranus conjunction, the big quantum leap. So that energy is still very much active. Not necessarily the astrological aspect of it, but the energy reverberates and it's still very active, very vivid, very intense. And this also means that we are still in that period of time when we can expect earth phenomenon, volcanoes, solar storms, electromagnetic stuff, volcanic stuff, tectonic movements, all of that. That's very much in the theme right now. But also, whatever I said, these natural calamities, so to speak, are true symbolically in politics. And that's so very much ongoing right now that we don't need to search for the examples, the manifestations. We just need to open the internet or news or whatever, even if most of it is altered, transformed, programmed, targeted. If you get what an energetic Neptune, it's part of the picture. It has to be like that. So This is when you can't even get upset because it is really meant to be like that. But this is where fake is so fake that it reveals itself. So on one hand, this, and I'm so sorry to jump to another subject, but this is so important in a practical way. This anaretic Neptune is also, how should I say, revitalizing scammers, fraud, deception, all of that. So be very careful. However, the good side is that it's so um tumultuous that it's obvious already. So use common sense. Thank you for this little detour. So going back to the main subject, um, the deception of all, okay, we get it, but there's still cores of truth in it, as in something happened. And it's what happens that, regardless of how it's presented, we just know that it's turbulent. We just know that it's a big game changer. We just know that it will have consequences, may it be political, financial, in the banking world, technology, and this is 100% almost justice, courts of justice, and we see this play out in various parts. And for example, I can give you the very best, most appropriate example is playing out in Britain. And British audience members will know this, where the British Post Office has a massive trial where it convicted people totally innocently. People were it was a software fail, and they didn't want to recognize, they didn't want to admit it. They said that the computer cannot be wrong, the people have to be wrong, and it was the other way around. So Uranus in Taurus, custom, tradition, financial. Taurus, Jupiter, justice, legal system that changes law and an institution forever. That's ongoing in Britain right now. All you need to do is just watch the court case play out, and that's the astrology 1 trillionth %, to the every last detail playing out. It's almost like Virgo energy. Everything that is in the sky in that trial, in that legal case, is there. Everything. But we don't need Great Britain's example, the International Court of Justice, and whatever is going on there. Every side of it. The humanitarian side, the customs, traditions, in which degree are international court rulings compulsory, and everything, everything. And let me just set the screen to the beginning of the week. There we are. So at the very beginning of the week, Venus is still conjunct Uranus in the sign of Taurus. So it's very, very much about that which was either a custom, a tradition, something fixed and rigid, and in a way valued, Venus, by everyone alike. For example, international rules. Uranus, the upgrade, the stark truth and awareness that we cannot ignore. Venus, from the beginning of the week, as she progresses to the end, she will meet Jupiter in the sky. Jupiter, a moment of justice, the moment of truth. Is international justice all that much valuable if no one respects it? Or what was the situation? And was the situation is Uranus? Was the situation this question will need an answer, in a almost quantum way, because there will be a big dichotomy between the written word, Mercury and Uranus together in the sign of Taurus, because Taurus is sperm. In tarot, Taurus is the high priest, and high priest is a symbol of contract. For example, marriage. Understand the symbolically is the person of authority, but in front of the divine. But take the symbol to the earthly plane, so a mayor or whoever officiates the marriage. So this is where whatever happens, it's in a way legally binding, but in every way, shape, and form Taurus. So it's gonna be there, even on the world stage. So I'm so sorry for this long introduction, but going back to the original idea, even if something very concrete doesn't happen in your life exactly next week, don't worry, because it can be on its way very well. It's like a comet. You know what I mean? It's just a little star today. Tomorrow is getting brighter, brighter, and brighter. And in a few days, you wake up that it's there. So be patient, because this energy is almost impossible not to stir something up in our lives, regardless if internally or externally. And even if it's okay, not a very comfortable energy, because Taurus is comfort zone, is stability, and you know where I'm going with this is. Taurus likes stable, fixed, comfort, the real sense of comfort, and that to be as permanent as possible. With Uranus and Jupiter agitating the ruler of this sign, Venus, it's not comfortable energy. Even if in a positive way, it's shocking. It's good, but shock is not comfortable. It is for the Uranian archetype, but a Uranian archetype is a smaller percentage of the population. You know what I mean? And speaking about Uranus, its lower octave, Mercury, so the mind, is further from these planets. So it's like watching them, processing, trying to process as best as it can. So that means evaluation. That means that we're lucid. That means greater awareness. And it's activating. It's how should I say? Awake. This is the best awakening. Kept awake. And for some people, I'm so sorry to say this, even literally, as an insomnia, or the brain doesn't switch off, or you know, like the grinding machine, the brain, the cogs just keep turning and turn. I'm so sorry, but this is part of the picture. Some people are more sensitive to this, especially Schumann resonance, and not just people, animals, plants, everything. Even now, how should I word this not to sound a little bit cuckoo, but energetic beings, like what certain people call fairies, fae, nymphs, earth angels, guardian. Those are energetic beings. They are not physical, but they are close to the physical, and they do have bodies made out of energy. So when something like this happens here, they are also quite affected as well. The closer they are vibrationally and frequency wise, and depending on which dimension they operate from, like, for example, which element, fiery salamanders, as they say it in modern magic, or naiads, or whatever, they are quite close to the physical plane. And I'm so sorry if you hear some kind of screams, but it seems that this Mars conjunct the North Node in the present moment is really triggering some disruption on the streets, and my windows open. So I'm really sorry about this. But where I'm going with this is, it's a big shakeup, a Venusian shakeup in the truest sense of the word. So the Taurian energy is not going to be comfortable, but it can be very positive. And I would want to say, I would dare to say that it has something really, really good and positive, useful, practical, freeing or liberating, better said, for everyone, regardless of how it plays out. So this is how we begin the week, with Venus being sandwiched between Uranus and Jupiter. The sun, a few hours, is still in the sign of Taurus, the very, very end of the sign, as it moves into the sign of Gemini. So that's the very first energy shift. And the sun, as it moves into Gemini, it conjuncts Sedna. So our minds are really gonna be focused on, now how should I word this not to make it sound a bit materialistic, but evaluating what the measure of sacrifice and benefits are in this sense in our lives, in everything basically, not just in our lives. We're evaluating what sacrifice is doing, but in a mental way, in a stark, cold, mercurial, mental way. This is where Venus is not yet mixed in this picture. You know, Venus is in her Taurian domain, but she is also very embodied, earthly. But the sun, the light of our consciousness, is already in the mental domain. So it's very, very, how should I say, cold, in a sense that it perceives things through a very, non-emotionally charged lens, but rather almost like as a scientist would. It experiment, it evaluate, it ties things together. It creates links between, the lived experience of the sacrifice, may that be your time, energy, for example, a job, or tears, a relationship, or something that is seen or felt as a sacrifice by you. And then, Gemini, you will ask the question, what happens if I would no longer do this sacrifice? Or for some people, the opposite. What would happen if I would sacrifice? And this is where the mind will start seeing things under this evaluation, because Gemini, energy-wise, is very much about choices and options and two sides of the same coin. But other times, that's like extremes of the same thing, two extremes of the same thing. And usually Gemini, when it finds the middle ground, that's when it reaches a good understanding, a good grip of things, and that kind of balance empowers Gemini very, very much. Gemini can very well much live in the extremes as well, but not for long. It is where, like, the seal, whale, whatever, is an aquatic creature, yet it can drown. It can still drown. That's like Gemini. It can dive into things and it's very good, but it not for a long time. So it needs the balance, the middle ground. So the sun in the sign of, and this can be either, work, job, career, money, financial speculations, partnerships, any kind of energy. Is it worth it or not? Or what has my sacrifice done for me so far? Or have I not sacrificed perhaps enough? All of these things. Another energy at the very beginning of the week is, well, Mars conjunct the North Node, as I said. The disruption outside my flat, you know what I mean? Yes, that's the disruption, the fights, the arguments, the tempers, all of that is part of this energy. But as I kept saying in previous horoscopes, fighting for peace, justice, humanity, morality, fighting for the greater good is also a very possible and probable expression of this energy. So this can be very good as well, not just fight and war and battles and conflicts, as you would expect usually from Mars in its home sign of Aries, because it is very physical, very feisty, short-tempered, and the ram. You know, even all you need to do is just Google or YouTube videos where rams are chasing people when they get angry, especially people who do have rams and sheep and all these livestock, know that it's better to just jump out of the way, climb up the tree or something until it calms down. Because striking back at it, oh my goodness, no. No, 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 no. So this is the Martian activation, but at the same time, this is good in a karmic way, energizing our karmic struggles in the sense to get somewhere, to overcome the challenges. It gives us power, it gives us ambition, it gives us determination. We feel it. We try to, our very, very best to follow the drive. May this be for our sovereignty, for our principles, for in any way, shape, and form this plays out in your life. And the other energy, which I find really significant at the beginning of the week, Venus holds a trine with Black Moon Lilith. This is an Earth trine. So Black Moon Lilith and Virgo, the deep gut. Because sometimes value how we evaluate things. Again, Black Moon Lilith and Virgo. Virgo is a very good evaluator. Mercury's masculine nighttime expression. So sorry, feminine expression. I wanted to say. So where I wanted to go with this is that sometimes the gut knows. God knows what it likes, what it needs, what it craves, what it doesn't want. So there is a lot of intelligence in the gut. And to translate this in any way, shape, and form, value, money, is it worth it? Signing a contract, sometimes the gut knows. Before you sign a contract, it looks so good. But an hour before even you get to going to sign, you get a stomach ache and the bad butterflies in the stomach and cramps and anxiety and feeling sick, and you know that your gut is telling you something. You just know. And then maybe you think again and you read the small print or fine print, or how you call it, the small little, and you see why your gut was hurting. And that can very well be a trine. You see through your gut's intelligence what otherwise you wouldn't, and you see the real value of things. This is an example, but this is also very sexual energy, because Lilith, but in a totally different way, is gonna be also part of this week's astrology highlighted, but not Black Moon Lilith. Because Black Moon Lilith is not a planet, not a celestial object. It is just a point, a degree, a calculation. There is another Lilith, which is an asteroid. And that Lilith is going to be highlighted this week, but we'll get there in a moment. And also the Sun semi-squares Mars at the beginning of the week. So you can imagine that Mars in the rational sign of Gemini and Mars in its fiery home sign of Aries, their semi-square is gonna spark tempers. Exactly what happened a few moments ago when there was like a street battle just around the corner here. That type of energy. But hopefully in our lives, those who listen to astrology, and not just my channel, any channel, are self-disciplined enough to, this can be a frustration, this can be something where you just had enough. You just cannot take it anymore. A minor irritant or something internal, your own mind. You will say to your own, just shut up already. Especially, when we have negative self-talks. You are determined, I don't know, to go and tell the boy you have a crush on something that he catches on. You know what I'm the first line of flirt or something like that. And you're determined to do this. And as you go and do it, your mind, basically, the autopilot mind keeps the, oh, but you're like this, you're like that, all these irritants, and you say, oh, shut up already. You know what I mean? So the semi-square, what we do is up to us, because that lower mind can either ruin the first line, the pickup line, if you listen to it, or you can silence it and go ahead. So, as I said, as positive, as awakening, as intense as all of this is, it's still uncomfortable. However, another thing I want to add, before the sun moves into Gemini, so this is a matter of hours, until it's at the 29 degrees of the very, very, very end of Taurus and the end minutes of Taurus as well, it holds a sextile with Neptune. That's very good for inspiration. For that's a really, really strong mystical, inner psychological, spiritual energy. That's like a muse, like a even guardian angel. You know what I mean? So moving on, let's move to the 22nd, where we can see that the sun is already at 0 degrees of the sign of Gemini, which means it starts holding a trine with Pluto. Now, I know that this is a trine, and it's something ultimately positive and flowing and good and easy. It should be easy, but that doesn't mean that it's very comfortable. And this is very unusual for trines. Why? Because it activates the mind profoundly. So your mind is on fire. Now, of course, what you do with that fire, or why is it on fire, that's the positive power. Inner power, especially Pluto retrograde. Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, let's say either the advice of someone important, or you representing a group of people, or something mental, or that comes from the connection of many people, empowers you greatly. Either a big truth that you know, your own philosophies, principles, own higher thoughts, or, as I said, something that comes from others, or an advice of an important person in your life. That's a power. And the sun in Gemini, you put it into practice mentally, of course, but mind over matter. Words, Gemini, words have power, all of this energy, So it's really, really good to set things straight for communication, negotiation, financial, or any kind of speculation, figuring stuff out, or getting to figuring stuff out, learning, improving, self-improvement, but in a mental way. Anything that has to do with communication, sharing information, the power of information, the power of media, the power of social media, the power of the phone, really, the internet, artificial intelligence. We're going to be seeing, symbolically speaking, stunts, manifestations, or what AI can do that will blow our minds, that without a shadow of a doubt. And especially while the sun is at this beginning degree of Gemini, It holds an outer sign conjunction with Jupiter, but Jupiter is already conjunct Venus as well. This is a big revelatory energy, value-wise, financially, our own inner values, what we love, who we love, our five senses, what pleasure, comfort, love, self-worth, decency, etc., means for us personally, in a higher sense, in a rational Mercury in Taurus, in a rational sense, in a philosophical sense, in any sense, basic, in a multi-dimensional sense, because these planets are united. They're united in one bunch, and each planet adds their own dimension. Mercury, mind. Uranus, technology, higher mind, the big picture. Venus, value, love, sensuality, money, all of the Taurian expressions. Then Jupiter, justice, faith, philosophy, religion, uh, even long distance travel, if that can be inserted into this cocktail of symbolisms that I'm using. And then the sun, the light of our awareness, and what we generate, who we are, what happens around what happens in our habitat, Taurus, in all dimensions of it, financially, physically, beautification, what we see, fashion, all shapes who we are, like it or not, know it or not. Even if this is your prime goal in life, society not to shape you, it still shapes you. You cannot exist totally isolated. And those who are pulling this impossible to achieve state off, well, those are extraordinarily few, and many of them very bad examples, if you know what I mean. So most beings here do need connections. So this energy shapes us, shapes what we project onto the world, this especially Sun in Gemini, our identity. So something impacts us, influences us, but the type of influence that we can't say no to, you know what I mean? A truth or our own truth, or now, of course, the power of media. We can imagine that there is also an anaretic Neptune expression of that, and the trine empowers that. Of course, half of it is smoke and mirrors, half of it is our own wishful thinking. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Everyone sees the good that they have within themselves. But this is also part of the picture. So this isn't necessarily bad as long as there is the other rational and very down to earth Gemini perspectives as well. And chances are there is equally. So it's okay. You know what I mean? And then the other energy, Jupiter sextiling Neptune, magic, manifestation, the dream, the power of dreams. When you believe in something strongly enough, it will become reality and truth. It will not ask you if it makes sense or not. You know what I mean? The power of belief is our greatest strength. Not many people say mind, other people say emotion, other people say heart. Actually, it's this power of belief. What we feed with our belief becomes real. And this in a even in a quantum way, so literally. So belief from a certain degree will not ask questions, and that's the unhealthy belief. But you know what I mean? This is where even things which defy nature can become real if there is strong and a lot sufficient quantity wise sufficient belief energy. It will not care if it's against Newtonian law or if it doesn't make sense or if it shouldn't. And this in a good sense, miracles, or in a bad sense, when we want to believe in bad, necessarily, of course, it becomes real. How many hauntings, demonic possessions, etc., which were 1,000,000% real in the sense that objects flew and moved, had nothing to do with any spirit demon. It was the person's deep faith and conviction that something is there that created that something. And the only way to stop it is to snap the person out of it, to tell when the person becomes aware that, well, okay, I by now I know that I'm keeping it alive. I know that I'm its food. That's when it can somehow get to an end and stop. But a lot of these cases are actually the person's belief. And the person will not admit this to themselves because would they want to do this intentionally? They could not. This is the power of the unconscious, not under your control, but it's still coming from you, believe it or not. So this is when this type of energy will play out very strongly, very, very strongly, especially that Jupiter also is the ancient ruler of Pisces, so it receives a strong energy that it likes. So yeah. Now moving on to the 23rd, this is when all of this, what I said, is still ongoing and operational, but it comes to a peak where we have the full moon in the sign of Sagittarius. So the full moon is, oh, I have to move it ahead a little bit. There we are. This will do. So this is when we have the full moon in Sagittarius in opposition of the sun and moon. So Gemini Sagittarius axis. I have a separate video about this. I'm going to link it below. Check it out if you're interested. I'm only going to say things that I haven't mentioned there. So Sagittarius, philosophy, belief, full moon revelation, or something coming to a culmination. This has a very practical sun in Gemini, a side to it, like new technology, especially that has to do with aviation, or a truth being shed on something. Because this full moon, the moon holds a sextile with Pluto, quite a tight one. The sun holds the trine. So there's power here. Technology, information communication, law, justice systems, all of this that is on fire right now is gonna be part of this energy, a big revelation, a moment of truth that will provoke our worldview change and faith and belief change. Something blows our mind, basically. And this full moon holds a conjunction with asteroid Lilith. So asteroid Lilith, something that is about primal justice and law. Justice which goes beyond secular justice, a primal, like the justice of nature, or the more, I don't want to use this word, but I have to because the more unforgiving side of divine justice, when there's no excuse for what you've done. For example, when the divine may forgive, but karma can no longer be stopped by anything. That side of divine justice. So there's that side of this energy, the raw. Why Lilith, Adam's first wife in myth, she rejected him. It was her right to reject him. The primal right of existence. If she didn't want him, it it was her truth. She rejected him honestly. You know what? It was her honesty and truth. So it was her right. That is always one of Black Moon Lilith's symbolism. The primal right is always going to be excused, if you know what I mean. This is where if you don't love someone or don't want someone, not attracted to someone, something, if the what should be there simply isn't there, you being honest about it, well, it is your divine right. And you're being honest. So, at least from a divine perspective, it is excused. If you have no guilt about this, you're excused. No one and nothing can judge you. If you don't judge yourself, nothing judges you. And some people who are extreme believers of this, for example, I don't better not give okay, I don't want to give sorry, no examples here. Can delay karma very much, and I better not add to this. Okay, so can delay karma. Another expression of Lilith is strong sexual energy, but this mixes with Sagittarius. So this can be, and Pluto, sextile with Pluto, then Sun trine Pluto, Sun in Gemini. Some we get to understand something. Like this energy is best explained through examples. Let's say someone was deeply religious, but they were like a very sensual person, deep within their genes. They could never express it. They got into a deep depression, and when they couldn't take it anymore, either through personal research or they went to psychologist, parapsychologist, astrologer, whatever, that it's their repressed sexual energy. They have to accept that regardless of their religious convictions, it's in their genes. For them to repress it and to stay calm and not have urges, is 10 million times harder than for just an average person. If this comes to their awareness, this can very quickly shift their worldviews and liberate them. The shackles are off. The quality of their life improves because they understand themselves in a different light, no longer judging. So you see what I mean? This is when certain shackles of fake morality are being taken off. You know, it's not a crime or a sin to have more fire within your being than another person who maybe has more earth or more water, or more something. You are what you are. As Christ said, I am what I am. As long as you don't do anything transgressive with that, long as you can contain it, then why should you judge yourself? If the cosmos doesn't judge you, if nature doesn't judge you. So this can very well be part of this energy, but in a specific way how it plays out in our life. So, but it's really magical, besides asteroid Lilith, trine Pluto, trine sextile Pluto, the mystical triangle, and then the sun moon oppose each other. Very powerful, magical, mind over matter, but belief over matter. This is a strong energy. All of this while Jupiter and Venus, the two benefics, being in the Earth embodiment sign of Taurus, hold the sextile with anaretic Neptune, belief, the dream, even the illusion at its maximum. It doesn't matter that it's an illusion. When it's maximum, it will be real. We'll make it real. So very powerful energies. Of course, all of this can be real in the bad sense. Like people who necessarily want to believe in bad and doom and gloom, who are choosing desperately faithlessness, but not, don't get me, not in a religious sense, not even in a spiritual sense, when you just don't want to believe in life, in your own life, in your own existence, in your own story, when you're that's like an implosion. You're imploding in that sense. But that implosion has to be fueled by your own will. You know what? You know, that is when that will get very dangerous. If you want to paint it black, it will swallow you this time. So we must become aware that we feed feelings and whatever we believe, with our willpower, mentally, emotionally, in so very many ways. So we have to be careful. We cannot blame the inner demon if we overfeed it every single moment in our waking lives. We can't. So we really need to feed the opposite of the inner demon. We need to feed, and not in an egocentric, narcissistic self, feed the self with love in that sense. But let's snap out of it. If a cricket, if a starfish, if a coral can love itself, can fight to the very, very end, regardless of conditions, then so can we. So can a bit higher level consciousness. You know what I mean? So this is where we must feed life. We must choose life many times. We must feed it. And when we start feeding life, things are going to get better so very quickly, especially under this energy. So let's feed life, let's feed hope, let's feed faith. And also, with this full moon in Sagittarius, we also are in a state of reality check. Pluto sextiling this moon, that's a reality check. This is where whatever we believe in, chances are it's not the misaligned belief, it's not fairy tales and fantasies, it's not our delusion. This is where we know painfully well the difference between fairy tales and when faith is our greatest weapon or our only source of survival. You know what I mean? In some parts of the world, faith, a being's own faith, is the only source of survival. For, for those poor souls, if they cannot, I don't want to get graphically into this, but if their intuition doesn't work, they can be bombed, for example, if they sleep in the wrong place. So if your intuition is not working, it's bad news. You see, some people are forced, their life depends on the spirit, how integrated the spirit is in their physical bodies. Because you need to dream it, your gut needs to tingle, or your intuition needs to communicate to you quickly, efficiently, that move a street, or don't sleep here tonight, or seek shelter elsewhere. You know what I mean? Or better, that's enough, sorry. So you get what I mean. Yes, this is also part of our reality, and this was always part of our existence in any age, from the most ancient to the, this goes always into, because we're spiritual beings. For some souls, the strongest training in order to become masters of their spiritual self is that their survival physically will depend on how well they can master their consciousness, their connection to the source. It's Earth school. We cannot judge it. We are not the judges of it. And that's it. So this Sagittarius full moon is very powerful. End of my analysis here, but the Jupiter Venus conjunction is also what happens in banking system, banks, World Bank, money, economy, values, our own consumer tendencies, our own uh, behavioral patterns regarding shopping and values, how we manage values, what we like, what we love. Times are changing powerfully. Pluto and Aquarius, especially retrograde. This is when we see the first changes of in mass psychology, as in what the mass is falling out of love with. And we could see Hollywood and Grammys and whatever, maybe not Grammy, but some kind of award heavily criticized. And instead of people admiring the stars, people were shaming them. How can you put this dress on and be proud of it when a lot of people are suffering all over the planet? And this is just an example of how times are changing rapidly, falling out of love with old values and falling in love with new values. But what those new values are, we don't know all. It's just the tip of the iceberg, Uranus and Taurus. But Jupiter has already paved the way along now with Venus, their conjunction in that energetic Taurus. But energetic, this is also like something is going to be heavy, very heavy. And the outer sun conjunction with the sun and Sedna, this energy will have multiple, let's say, truths written on it. It is going to be relevant to shed light on why certain things happened in the past, Sedna, but also in the present, how things are as chaotic, as imbalanced as they are in the present, and how that chaos is likely to look like and settle down, crystallize in the close future. So this is quite a useful energy, very, very useful, but not very, very easy. And the sextile to Neptune, well, that has so many expressions of it, because you can imagine those people who want to influence the financial trends. So the big, big power players, they're also empowered. So it's not total, this energy is not totally free. It has a strong influence to be shaped and molded according to knowledge, whatever. But Uranus being in Taurus, that can only have so much influence. You know what I mean? Uranus is the freedom principle. So it's not as controlled as it could possibly potentially be. That's what I want to say, actually. So moving on to the 24th is when we have another important energy shift. When Venus enters into the sign of Gemini at that 0 degree of Gemini, which means it starts her trine with Pluto, and she's conjunct the sun, a very, very beautiful energy. Venus brings all again, the evaluation of the inner values and whatever that we want to embody. We know what we want now. The mental sphere. Let's figure it out. Let's learn it. Let's make a plan, or let's find allies, worker, whatever Gemini, the twin, the other, the bro, the sis, the neighbor, the community, but the very small community. This is when you and two neighbors, not you and the whole neighborhood, you and two neighbors, or you and two bros, you and two whatever, even your partner, because no partnerships. Every partnership, some partnerships, like I'm speaking about like marriages, like that type of partnerships. Some are based as in their nucleus is more sensual. And that is the nucleus. It is meant to be like that because that works for those two people. Others are more like bro sis, you know what I mean? Others are more, find in the other that permanent sibling, the twin, that they want to be tied to literally all their waking lives. You know, they don't ever want to be separated. That's the other type of. Others are more like Venusian base. The nucleus is like a permanent romance. They say that, you know, romance lasts a few months or years, but then it it fades away and it turns into a different kind of love. Not for everyone. Some couples will never ever get down from that romantic high. They stepped into that dimension. The rest of the world will never ever matter as much as their own stories. Others still have a more Saturnian nucleus. There's a big need. They're almost like associates, partners. Well, why not marry each other? Well, we need each other anyway for all of our lives for something like professional or lucrative, or they have a big purpose together. Let's get married. And they agree. And some people think, oh my goodness, poor people, how can they do that? You'd be surprised that those couples work quite well. They respect each other. They just have that special Saturnian element which gives them the, how should I say, the consideration, the Saturnian type of consideration for the other to solve any problem. There's no problem that cannot be solved by those people. There's the ones who have a more mercurial nucleus, their minds. Their minds are in love with each other. Now, these couples are the craziest because their hearts might not be in love with each other, but the minds they cannot leave each other alone. If they don't display it in a loving way, then they annoy each other or they obsess about something, but they will never ever leave each other alone. They can't because the minds, they are in love with each other. Just the other parts of the being are not as much. But these are the crazy type of couples, the love hate type of couples. But I think you get my idea. But this is where many couples have Gemini nucleus. They're just like siblings. And it's okay. For those people, either this is when you find your sibling, Sun, Venus, and trine also Pluto in Aquarius. But why does that matter? Because Aquarius, the needle in the haystack. But Pluto is the GPS now. You somehow find one another. You find the needle in the haystack. Because why? This fraternity vibe. Don't understand this in a perverted view or anything like that. The soulmate type of energy. It won't matter in which way it will connect you guys, but it will connect you. So for those people, this is either when they attract the other, or if for those who are in this type of relationship, this is when a big adventure starts, a new chapter for both of you. Of course, as a couple, as everything, but almost like a dimensional shift. Where are we? In that sense. So Venus in Gemini. This is when love is gonna be in the mind. So this is a really, really good energy for anything that has to do with communication, marketing, advertisement, uh, to convince people romantically through words, through media, through communication, through images sent via the internet, but especially in this day and age, be so careful who you send images to, because the artificial intelligence has the dark side. It can do anything with it, absolutely anything. So, but Venus in Gemini, usually that does the good thing. It makes the other one be very curious of you. Curiosity. But this is where the attraction is in the mind. You're looking for the sexiness in the other person's mindset, etc., etc., etc. You know what I mean. And then to move on to the 25th and 26th, depending on where you are on the planet, this is when Jupiter moves into the sign of Gemini. A massive energy shift. So this is where these planets, the Sun, Venus, Jupiter, are all throughout the week are just following one another. So Jupiter finally exits the sign of Taurus and enters Gemini. Now, I have a separate video about this, so I'm not gonna detail this very much because there is a lot to say about this. It is in exile. So Jupiter is as further away as it can get from its home sign of Sagittarius, because Gemini is its opposite sign. So, it can expand, amplify, magnify the more chaotic, rebellious confusion. I don't know what I want, or I want both. As in, I want something, but I don't want it at the same time. So, all of these annoying, paradoxal, mind blowing, double personality, slightly bipolar, all of these Gemini traits are going to be expanded for the next good year. So, yeah, and this don't don't hate on Geminis, because I'm Sun and Moon Gemini, because I'm not speaking about Gemini suns. Everyone has Gemini in their chart. So everyone will be annoying, undecided, or double personality. Today you love it, tomorrow you don't, then you love it again, then you don't, or you love it and hate it at the same time. Sweet and sour, all of these dual things are going to be part of your life. So it's not going to be a Gemini native who annoys you. It's going to be something in your life that is going to be dual. So the other not so comfortable and easy side is overthinking, um, hair splitting attitude, anxiety. Why this? Why that? Why? Wanting to know what other people think obsessively, being exaggeratedly curious. It doesn't matter in which sense, because this is the type of energy when curiosity can get you very, very far if done properly. Jupiter wisdom, right? It requires wisdom. Mercury must be severely disciplined by Jupiter, so to speak, because this is Mercury's home sign. So Gemini it plays out differently than Sagittarius, let's say like that. So curiosity can get you in all the right places, but curiosity can also get you in all the wrong places, dead or worse. So wisdom. But with Jupiter and Gemini, as an esoteric energy, if people have like the Crowley tarot, the Thoth or whatever tarot, it is a cruelty. Why? Because Gemini, as I said, can be very cold. The cold facts. No sympathy, no emotion, no feeling. If 1 + 1 is 2, then it's 2. We're not going to change that, even if the fate of the world, or I don't know what, we are not going to change. If 1 + 1 is 2, it is 2. You know what I mean? This coldness of logic, if this is expanded, it can become very cruel. Like, let me give you an example. This is when there's a loving couple and they love each other so much, but one of them kisses another person, and the other one, out of sheer principle, will not forgive. They love them with every fiber, and because of the principle, they will still not forgive. That can be very Jupiter and Gemini, for the sheer sake of it, because we were agreed, the agreement. Bye bye. That's cruel, but also just, depending on how you want to look at it. You know what I mean? And anxiety. And when the mind is like an octopus suffocating you, when the mind is not your friend, it can expand all of that. But it can equally expand the inner adolescent. It can also expand optimism, hope, positive, visual thinking, but in a bigger degree, almost to the ridiculousness, which is not okay. That's the toxic positivity. But it can really, really infuse the mind with hope and faith and positivity. But I'm going to be speaking about Jupiter and Gemini a lot in the following horoscopes. So I'm going to end it here right now. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Wishing everyone a really, really magical and powerful full moon in Sagittarius. And a lot of wisdom, patience, faith, inner strength, resilience, and sanity to navigate safely through these very strong energy shifts and changes. So thank you, everyone. Until next time, bye for now.